Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining us. This is Diksha Gupta, editor at Economic Times, your host for the hour. In this generation of technology dominating the world, Internet has created infinite opportunities for international trade. It has decreased the geographical distance between buyers and sellers and has changed the way the individuals and companies conduct business, trade, or communicate. Cross-border e-commerce has gained a lot of momentum as customers are more interested to purchase products from outside countries at reasonable costs. On the other hand, it is a massive opportunity for manufacturers, wholesalers, distributors to sell these products at wholesale or retail price to the buyers and make more profits from the global market and establish themselves as an international brand. This webinar will help you better understand the opportunities, benefits, challenges and risks of cross-border e-commerce for companies across industry verticals and regions in India. The session will also help you explore how cross-border e-commerce can boost your company's efforts in business expansion, revenue growth and profit maximization. To throw light on all of these issues, we have with us Mr. Abhishek Mitra, who's the business head cross-border retail for Vinculum Solutions. Abhishek comes with over 15 years of experience in the Indian retail sector. He has been associated with MNCs like Levi's, Pepe Jeans, Fruit of the Loom, as well as the leading domestic giants like Shoppers Stop and House of Anita Dongre. His core competency lies in business operations, marketing, and e-commerce. Abhishek is passionate about creating best-in-class retail operating processes and mentoring teams for new business engagements. At Vinculum, he aims to create a global network of partners to enable brands and e-tailers to trade across borders. And joining him is Mr. Gaurav Sishodia, Director Business Development, Payoneer India. Gaurav comes with 14 years of experience within the banking and payments industry in companies such as Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank, Mashreq Bank, ICICI Bank Limited and Citi. Gaurav possesses in-depth knowledge of the industry, both local and international. At Payoneer India, he hopes to leverage his vast industry knowledge to grow the business and help his partners succeed. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on board. We hope to have an insightful session ahead. Over to you.
Thank you, Diksha, for introducing me and Gaurav and inviting us for the webinar. Good afternoon, all. Welcome to the session to uncover business opportunities in cross-border e-commerce. I and Gaurav will jointly take you through the session. Please make a note of all your queries, and at the end of the webinar, we will select a few questions which will be addressed jointly by me and Gaurav. In case of any specific queries, please feel free to reach out to us through email and we'll get back to you. So the objective of this webinar is to present an overview of the competitive landscape, the opportunity assessment of cross-border e-commerce, delve on some of the categories which will benefit most, some of the challenges faced by brands for launch in international markets, and the value add for Vinculum and Payoneer which they bring into the system. Without any further ado, I hand over the session to Gaurav to take you through the competitive landscape for cross-border e-commerce.
First of all, good afternoon, guys. Very happy to be here. What I'm going to cover is majorly a lot on data side, how e-commerce market across, whether it's domestic, global, or cross-border side is doing. I hope with these data points we are able to convince you guys to go cross-border. To start with, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give you an overview of global e-commerce scenario. In 2018, the e-commerce sales was around $2.86 trillion. It's gonna almost double by 2021. It's gonna be $4.8 trillion. It's gonna grow by close to 18%. Currently, e-commerce is 1/8 of total retail sales, but when it comes to growth, e-commerce contributes closer to 42%. Clearly, the growth in the retail side as of now is coming from e-commerce. Moving on to the next one. Very interesting slide from India perspective. So what we have done is we have just compared retail and e-commerce story in India. Retail market in 2015 was $534 billion. Expect this to grow to $1,200 billion by 2021. E-commerce from 5.4 billion will grow to closer to $60 billion. So if you look at the growth rates, uh, retail as such will grow by 20% CAGR versus e-commerce, which is going to grow at a massive 50% CAGR, and it's going to be a $60 billion market in India itself. The second part of the slide actually talks about what is the total offline retail market size as per categories and their share in the total market share versus how is the e-commerce market doing. So if you look at it, I'm keeping food and grocery out of the discussion as of now. But if you look at it, fashion contributes close to 9%, which is $62 billion as of now, and home and living, which is $29 billion, contributes 4% of the total offline retail. If I compare that to the e-commerce bit, it's a massive difference, right? Fashion contributes 30% to total e-commerce, whereas home and living is again 9% versus 4%. So any of the brands who are in these two categories have a great chance to grow and grow quickly. And for the other categories, all I can say is Indian e-commerce market is pretty nascent. It's a greenfield opportunity to invest. Moving on, so from local to now cross border, if you look at it, 2017 the market size was $550 billion. It's going to multiply by like 3 times in next 4 years. It's going to be a $1.5 trillion market. uh, what are the factors which are driving this growth? So one obviously is the global rise in internet connectivity. If you look at world population, 54% of the people have internet connectivity, and that's huge when you talk about the population of the world, right? Second is obviously with the internet coming, there is rising cross-border internet traffic. You have access to information available across the globe. You just have to click and you get that information. I think the third is a very, very important piece. Increase in online sales channels. So there are marketplaces like Amazon, eBay's, Walmarts of the world who are clearly focusing on cross-border piece. At the same time, somebody who wants to create his own brand or create his own store, there are platforms like Shopify which makes it so simple to do it. So I think it's a very, very important aspect which has led to the growth of cross-border e-commerce. Next is widening range of digital tradable products. I think what's the fifth one is more important: technological advancement in aiding trade of goods. The logistic has grown leaps and bounds. You get you get door-to-door tracking of the parcel which gets shipped. You have ERP service providers, or you have service providers who automate your order management, your logistics, your pricing, your cataloging, and now people are talking about AIs in this world, which can be very intuitive and give you results quickly. Moving on. Yeah. So why should somebody consider cross-border as an expansion strategy? Not a very trivial question. Very clearly, it's a global digital access. With advent of internet, people tend to buy. They have information across the world. They can just look for what they want, and they can search. It doesn't matter where the product comes from. Uh, Second point, very, very again, it's a change which has happened. Like the generation has actually jumped. People have directly moved from, and it has happened in India, from landline to mobile, and nobody actually, the percentage of people using desktop on an internet for internet is pretty low. So it's an age of mobile commerce, which has led to explosion of people using internet, buying products on internet, getting information on internet. And third, again, social media connectivity to the world, the Facebooks, the Pinterests, uh, when people had to advertise, at some point of time, people only thought about Google, right? When Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagrams of the world have come in, it's just changed the landscape. You can do targeting. You can do targeting as per the category, as per the likes, as per the hobbies. So it has made targeting way more laser focused and can give you better ROIs than what it used to be at some point of time. And fourth, again, it's a huge trend. We see countries actually supporting e-commerce as an industry because they see a lot of growth and lot of cross-border business coming in. Uh, there are the countries like Malaysia, the countries like Dubai who have opened up free trade zones for e-commerce. With Brexit coming in, the government is talking about how can they increase their, how can they help their sellers to go cross border and sell in US, in Asia, in rest of the Europe, and that they're signing up deals with countries to grow this particular business. So keeping in mind these four five considerations, clearly cross border is gonna grow really fast in next couple of years. Uh, this slide majorly talks about numbers in terms of what is the cross-border business happening geography-wise. Uh, Again, for me, every irrespective of numbers, where they say North America is going to grow by 15%, but what we have to look at is the America market itself is the biggest market in the world. So even at 15%, it's huge. There are markets like LATAM, which are, or for that matter, Southeast Asia, which are growing at a phenomenal pace. Uh, it depends upon your product category, which markets do you want to start with, and choose market accordingly. Although the slide does talk about growth rates, to me it doesn't matter. You need to figure out which markets your goods will get utilized or consumed, and can you manage the logistic piece of it quickly. So if somebody decides that they want to grow their business across border, what are the various considerations you should look at? uh, First and most important, again, content and marketing. If you're selling on C discount in France, you can't be having product descriptions in English. It has to be in French, right? So it's important to use that local language. Every market has their own set of usage patterns. For example, in China, Facebook will not work. You need to, if you want to market, you need to be there on WeChat. So it's important to localize the marketing and content effort there. Uh, the second point, I think, is a deal breaker, or is something which can lead to either you make loads of money or you don't end up making money. So for me, compliance becomes really important. And for example, a de-minimization value in UK is very different from de-minimization value of US. Uh, so then the question arises: do you want to keep your goods in a duty-free warehouse, or you want to keep your goods in warehouse where duty is levied? So some of the consideration you have to be very careful of. Uh, you need to get connected to a right partner who can give you a right advice on that piece. Otherwise, the complete cross-border piece can go haywire for you. And last and most important, choose a right partner. Have parameters like, does he have market information? Is he been there in the market for long enough? What are the customer reviews of this particular person? Does he have a e-commerce experience? Does he have your category experience? Is he trustworthy enough? And last but not the least, does he have a technology through which you can scale? You don't want to partner with somebody who has a very limited technology and can't innovate and create better products. Uh, that's more or less for me as of now. I pass on the mic to Abhishek to cover the rest of the slides.
Sure. Uh, some very insightful thoughts shared on the screen. We move on to some of the important considerations for cross-border e-commerce, and we look at opportunities, and I will substantiate it with examples as we go by. First, we are talking about global expansion and revenue streams. So, for many companies, international expansion offers a chance to conquer new territories and reach more of these customers, thereby increasing sales. As an example, US firms like Nike and IBM, they maintain operations in countries in Europe, example being Netherlands, which offers direct access to about 170 million European customers, and the distance in consideration being only 300 miles from the last border of US. So companies with international expansion can also offset negative growth in one market by operating very successfully in another. Second one is a larger accessible audience. So in today's world, travel and employment opportunities have created avenues where many communities from different regions are actually having an explosive population growth. As an example, currently there are about 2 million Indians estimated to be living in the United Arab Emirates, which is around 27% of the overall population of UAE. This provides a lot of brands with an opportunity to target relevant categories and retail. The next one is price appreciation. So if your company has a very unique product or a technological advantage which is not available to international competition, this advantage does definitely result in business success. Also, sales in foreign markets can fetch you a much higher price than what you would be retailing in your own domestic markets. Innovate with new products and assortments. So there could be scenarios where a new product line would be added to an existing category, like for instance, stoles in the ethnic or the occasion wear category for marketplaces, let's say in Middle East, which has a sizable Indian presence. We can also talk about assortments, which will change depending on the usage and the competition offerings in the market. And finally, move on to the first mover advantage, which is actually self-explanatory, but companies can choose international expansion to gain a competitive edge over their competitors. First mover advantage also allows to build strong brand awareness with consumers much before their consumers think of that market. So at this junction, we will quickly pause for a poll question, and you will see the questions on your screens. We have about 30 seconds, and then I will rejoin with the next slide. Okay, moving on to the next slide, which actually talks about categories that will benefit most from cross-border. So the infographic on the right depicts the most popular shopping categories worldwide in 2018. And taking cue from the same, I'll be sharing some insights into categories that will benefit most. Categories with low entry barriers. So as an example, apparel as a category is perceived to be having the most low entry barriers across marketplaces globally. The duties are very competitive for this category, and by and large, shipping costs are kept minimal due to the majority of flat packaging and weight of the consignment. Brands may also wish to look at factors like certifications and local and legal compliances. Categories with competitive advantage. So competition from the local market becomes an important consideration. The more competition you have, the more efforts you will need to spend to build the brand awareness and drive traffic for your products. Again, quoting an example, let's say ethnic wear from India has an immense business potential as against Western wear in marketplaces in US. And this I say because as per a survey done by a leading marketing agency, 27% of USA's current population in 2018 are from Asia, of which 18% are an Indian population. Niche segments. So niche segments will vary depending on region. A niche segment in your domestic market may not be a niche category in the market you're considering for cross-border. The extent of availability of the category in the market needs to be taken into consideration. Ease in handling and transportation. I think Gaurav mentioned about this as part of the logistics issue. Categories like white goods and furniture, though very much in demand, they carry a challenge in terms of difficulty in handling, and cost of transportation also becomes a consideration. As against this, if you look at categories like home textiles and office stationery, they are easy to ship and pack, thereby optimizing freight charges. Lastly, but not the least, fitment with the local market. Goods which cater to the demand of the market will definitely deliver a very positive market performance. Like for instance, leather and heavy winterwear products will have very ready acceptance in marketplaces in Russia, in Northern Europe, Scandinavian countries, Northern America, due to weather conditions and customer demand. Likewise, maternity products and toys are also in heavy demand, as in Southeast regions, there is currently a high population boom. We move on to the next slide, which talks about some of the challenges hindering brands from launch. Some of these have been compiled basis discussions which we have had with our existing partner network. Also, basis our study, I will be recommending a few ways to overcome each of these challenges. So the first one here is appropriate market and channel identification. And the most efficient approach is to focus on the channels you may already have or are currently using, or through which you already have a global presence. For instance, Amazon has successful reputable marketplaces in about 11 countries and could be a first marketplace for consideration relevant to the category to go live. Also, you may want to consider markets where your products have a very distinct competitive advantage and can scale faster. Second one is scalability of business and brand positioning. So as the saying goes, growth is not a one-size-fits-all, and different industries require different approaches to overcome the challenges of reaching more customers. From a company perspective, you will need to evaluate market potential, target segment, and competitor offerings before positioning yourself in a category, which then will need to have a very distinct USP to achieve market leadership. Third one is merchandise assortment and pricing strategy. So typically in this point, there are a lot of considerations which a brand will need to consider, like for instance, climate, consumer demands, trends, promotional calendars. These are very important when a brand decides to step into any international marketplace. Identifying and analyzing your competition is also absolutely essential to establish your brand identity and create the right connect with the target audience. You will want your pricing to be around the same, if not better than your competition when you're starting off, to gain a competitive advantage. The fourth one is a logistics model. So as a thumb rule, the further a market is from you, the more expensive it will become for your products to be shipped there. Besides the base fare, there could be additional costs like fuel surcharge, service tax, duties, and other taxes, which, if they were to be added up to the entire cost, would make the final price a couple of times more than its original price in the country of retail. Most importantly, the customs clearance, payment of duties, and meeting delivery timelines mandated by the marketplace make it extremely important to choose a correct 3PL partner who can be relied upon and who has extensive operations across multiple geos. Managing returns and liquidation of unsold inventory. So in case of a marketplace fulfilled model, returns from consumers are normally sent to the brands directly. Factoring in duties and reverse logistics, the brand may actually bear a cost or a loss on the product. Likewise, in a partner fulfilled model, unsold products will be returned back to the brand, which may also result in a loss. And in some cases, there are government regulations which actually do not allow returns after a certain period of time. Quoting an example, if you look at leather products from India, the government doesn't allow return of leather products when you ship it out to any international market over a period of time. So it's important to identify partners who could then facilitate product liquidation and liquidation of unsold inventory. The last but not the least point is payment processing. Most marketplaces which enable brands from other countries to list their products directly on their platform make it mandatory for the brand to have a local entity in the country of retail. Or they may need to have a local partner who can transfer payments received from marketplaces to the brand. So it's here that companies like Payoneer add a value add to the system due to their integrations with various marketplaces. Moving on to the next slide, where I talk about the different business models. So essentially, in our parlance, we talk about three different business models. The first one being a drop shipment, where essentially you talk about three different entities. We have the seller, we have the marketplace, and we have the customer. In this model, the seller and the marketplace and the customer are in three different locations. The marketplace and customer being one location, and the seller being located in a different location. The second model, the fulfillment by marketplace, is the most adopted model with companies who trade with marketplaces like Amazon. Here, the seller actually transfers the products to the marketplace, and once the order is placed by a customer on the marketplace delivers the products to the end customer. The last model is the model which is actually gaining traction. Here, a lot of sellers are actually figuring that they would rather look at increasing their economies of scale and reducing their logistic cost. So they have appointed a local partner in a new country. And the advantage with this model is that the local partner registers the brand on multiple marketplaces. So whenever an order comes to the seller, to the partner from various marketplaces, he does the fulfillment to the end customer. The next slide primarily talks about some of the advantages and disadvantages of all of those three models. And here I would want to make a note that the choice of models will depend on the business strategy for each brand and their appetite for expansion in new markets. So you can read through some of the benefits and challenges, but while you're at it, let me also quickly highlight some of the points not included here. In the first model, the drop shipment, out of all the three models, this has the best opportunity to showcase your full assortment to the customer. However, you need to block your working capital. On a flip side, the long lead time that happens during deliveries will actually hamper the number of orders and the product range. The cost of individual shipment also could be a deterrent for long distance in case of first mile delivery. The second model, which is the fulfillment by marketplace. In this model, the working capital or the working directly with the marketplace helps you in getting a better positioning and rating for your products. However, while you improve your ratings, focusing on a single marketplace, it might not give you enough traction in terms of building the momentum for the brand or in terms of the minimum number of products which you are receiving as orders from marketplaces, thereby increasing your logistic cost. Also, marketplaces in this model will provide limited support for liquidating the unsold goods. In the last model, working with a local partner, it actually helps you mitigate the challenges of low sell-through and dealing with unsold inventory. Also, having goods in the country of retail allows you to fulfill orders from multiple marketplaces within the given SLAs. The only factor which you need to consider here is the financial position or the financial stability of the distributor or the partner with whom you're parking your goods. If this factor were to be controlled by certain other parameters, like for instance, a letter of credit or a bank guarantee, then this becomes the most viable model for any brand looking at doing business. So after explaining the various models, I would now want to talk about the Vinculum cross-border ecosystem. So in our ecosystem, we actually have a partner network where we talk about third-party logistics, we talk about payment remittance partners, we talk about franchisees, marketing agencies, marketplaces, and brand distributors. With all of these partners, the brand remains at the center, and the service engagements of the various partners ensure that a brand is able to scale the business in a new marketplace. Explaining about the Vinculum value add. So Vinculum will not only enable partner linkages, but they will also support the ecosystem through support with retail products like order management system, warehouse management system, and catalog management system, which actually helps the brand to upload content across multiple marketplaces. Franchisees will provide an additional opportunity for the brand to expand across offline retail in case that is part of a brand's vision in the new market. Marketing agencies can also provide their services for BTL activation, digital media engagement, SEO and SEM for local web stores, amongst others. The second part of the slide actually talks about the entire service enablement, which will be ensured by the partner network for Vinculum. Moving on to the next slide. So Vinculum Solutions over the years has built a network of networks wherein most of our partners are integrated with our retail products. In our attempt to enable brands to sell faster anywhere, which happens to be our punchline and our motto, we've captured a few of our partners in the pictorials, which you see on the right-hand side. Most of these partners have been associated with us for quite a period of time. We have also on-ground sales teams in India, Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia, UAE, and US, who assist us in building to the partner network. They meet any local language requirement. They also engage with marketplaces and finally provide the correct market insights. I will wait on to the slide while you look at the partner association. Moving on. We have a poll question which will now come on your screens. Thank you so much. So as we move to the end of the webinar, I would also present to you the Vinculum Edge. So we have a current partner network of 80 plus global partners, some of whom you have seen in the previous slide. They actually facilitate a faster and efficient market entry. We have active integrations with 150. So we have around 150 plus integrations with e-commerce marketplaces, 3PLs, web stores, and retail systems. We have a knowledge bank where category specialists and around 130 30 plus subject matter experts are present to provide market intelligence to brand exploring international expansion. We're also looking at a market reach of across 30 countries. And finally, we have about 10 years of rich experience managing global clients. I would also take a minute to mention that one of our retail products, warehouse management system, has been in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for 2017 and 18. Finally, I would like to hand it over to Gaurav to enumerate on the business momentum brought on by Payoneer.
Thank you, Abhishek. I'm just going to take 2 minutes on this particular slide. Payoneer is the biggest B2B cross-border payment platform in the world. We are licensed in the countries we operate in. For example, MSB in US, e-money licensed in Europe. We are PCI DSS compliant. We operate in more than 200 odd countries, 150 odd currencies. are being present in so many countries. We have language support of more than 35 different languages. Uh, Rest is about our numbers in terms of what is the transaction we do, what is the volume we do. Uh, our strength comes from very similar to what Vinculum does. We work with more than 2,000 marketplaces across the globe. This includes names like Walmart, where we are an exclusive partner for them on a cross-border side, Amazon, Wish, Lazada, Linio, you name it, and we work with them, except for maybe eBay's of the world. Uh, that's more or less about Payoneer. I think that
Yeah, so we have come to our webinar, and I would leave the session open for questions.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for such a detailed outlook on how the industry is faring in cross-border e-commerce. To start off with the questions, the first one comes from Puneet. The question is, how do we ship liquids internationally? For example, hair oils.
Okay. So as of now, any products which belong to the perishable category or non-perishable category, they have very different challenges in terms of moving cross-border. As you mentioned, liquids like hair oils, correct?
Right.
Okay. So one is that the challenge with this category is that first we need to look at the concentrations, because these are typically identified as products which need to have very clear licenses and which need to have very clear registrations. If we talk about marketplaces in Northern America, like US marketplaces like Amazon.com or Jet.com, they have a certain set of regulations in terms of import of these merchandise, especially categories like hair oil or perishable goods. And we will need to understand a bit more in detail about the products, whether they are meeting the legal requirements of these marketplaces before we are able to suggest a strategy.
Sure, thanks. Akhilesh asks, which are the cross-border selling platforms? Which are the cross-border selling platforms that you guys support?
so. Again, I can talk about Payoneer to start with. We Anybody who's selling on marketplaces, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Walmart, whether it's Sears, whether it's Linio, whether it's Lazada, we support all of them. We as of now we don't support any web store which has a requirement of a payment gateway. Having said that, with Vinculum, there is no such restrictions. They support marketplaces as well as web stores.
Yeah, so just adding on to what Gaurav has mentioned and replying to Akhilesh, as you would have seen in one of our slides, we are actually integrated with almost all the major marketplaces in Southeast Asia. We are also integrated with Souk and Noon in UAE. We are integrated with Walmart, Amazon, and a few other marketplaces through our partner network in US. We have active integration with almost all the leading marketplaces in India, and it's a progressive activity. So we are adding on to more marketplaces as the time goes by. The next focus being Latin America and marketplaces in Australia and New Zealand.
Great. Shashindra asks, in a dropship model, who is the receiver or the importer? Is it the marketplace or the consumer who orders the good from the marketplace?
Sure. So, Shishir, in the case of dropship model, the product is delivered to the end customer, so it's always the end customer. It's never a marketplace.
The next question comes from Jayant. He asks, have you analyzed the tax implications of these structures?
No, so in this webinar, we have not considered the tax implication. I have broadly given a definition in terms of legal compliances, but tax implications and custom duties will vary from category to category and from marketplace to marketplace. They will also vary depending on the region. Just to quote an example, goods till about $800 in US do not entertain any tax. Likewise, if you look at import of items in Singapore, The most convenient items with low duty structures are probably apparels as a category. So answering quickly this question, it will be dependent on the marketplace, on the category, and on the region.
Just to add to my previous answer on a drop shipping side. So let me rephrase my answer. There are two ways we should look at it. If you are a seller who's selling on a marketplace and working on a drop shipping model, which means that you're actually sending goods to the marketplace warehouse if you're using an FBA. In that case, importer on record is the marketplace. If you're using your own web store or using Shopify as a platform, in that case, end user is the importer on record.
Thanks. The next question comes from Adil. How do we ship dietary supplements like natural supplements or herbal supplements, etc.?
So again, Adil, it depends upon which geography. If I'm talking about US, you need to have those certifications. If you still want without certifications, you still want to sell it, Amazon as a marketplace allows to do it, but they don't take responsibility around that piece. So at the end, it becomes your responsibility to get the certifications done.
So I will just to add on to what Gaurav has mentioned. If your question is pertaining to what is the market selection for dietary supplements, you may want to look at a report which has been published in Times of India today, where it talks about 3 countries from Asian region being in the top set of 100 countries in terms of fitness. But more or less, it's the European countries and America which dominates the entire top 50 nations in terms of fitness and health. And if you were to look at markets for your products in dietary supplements, you may wish to look at leading marketplaces in Europe and US, where there will be a greater percentage of population wanting to kind of look at certain kind of products.
Thanks. So the next question comes from Pawan. He wants to ask, does Vinculum offers Amazon Australia integration? And if so, are the sales already low in that? If sales are already low in that country over Amazon, then does it make sense to launch there within 2 months from now?
So answering this question, we are still in very high levels of engagement with Amazon Australia. And as of now, the kind of orders that are flowing in through our integrations with Amazon are on the lower side. However, like I said, this is work in progress. I will be able to comment on this probably in about 2 to 3 months of time when we are actually finishing the entire integration and when we have a bigger basket of brands who are processing the orders on Amazon Australia through Vinculum.
Now, taking a stab on the second part of the question, we do work with Amazon very closely. What you need to understand is Amazon has recently launched in Australia. So if we have to go by our experience, it's important to get into the market quickly. We know Amazon will invest a lot of money there and the sales will come in. So it's about being there first, able to establish your brand and then reap benefits over a period of time.
Okay, so Siddharth wants to ask if you can please list 5 main differences between domestic e-commerce and international e-commerce operations. Siddharth also shares that they deal mainly in processed food category.
Sorry, I haven't got your question.
Okay, so Siddharth asks if you could please list 5 main differences in between domestic e-commerce and international e-commerce operations, and he is wanting to particularly know this with respect to processed food category.
Okay, so on this one, in terms of processed food category, again, what I would want to mention here is one. See, if you talk about domestic marketplaces, and I would assume that Siddharth is operating in India, the challenge here is in terms of the entire logistic enablement, the kind of warehousing that is required for processing of perishable items in case of processed foods, it definitely poses a challenge. The biggies like Amazon and Flipkart are very, very enabled, But in terms of pure marketplaces, the number of such marketplaces for listing of processed foods is very less as compared to some of the other international markets. For instance, if you look at processed food share of total e-commerce business in US, Amazon has very big number of distribution centers which actually have the kind of facilities which can support processed foods. Also, processed foods as part of a business share in Amazon market in US is on a very high percentage. The second biggest challenge that I would see in a category like processed food is in terms of educating the audience. People in India are very reticent to try new brands or products without the brand not being very recognized or having a quality which they can trust. However, on international marketplaces, considering that a lot of people use social media very actively, it is entirely the content which drives people to adopting to buy a new brand from any new marketplace. Gaurav, you want to add some more points to this?
I think for me, the most important part, if I have to look at it, is the licenses. If you want to sell food products in US, it's a very strict norm. You need to have licenses around that piece. On a lighter note, in this category, as Abhishek said, Amazon is very strong. Having said that, Amazon normally sells themselves these particular category. So
yeah.
Okay, so we have one last question that we can accommodate, although there are a lot of questions that are coming in, and there are a lot of people who have a lot of other questions to ask, but the one last question that we can accommodate is from Giriraj. How your design solution will help e-commerce firms to extend their global catalog and increase their sales numbers?
Okay, so like I said, Vinculum Solutions has one of its retail products, which is automated listing tool. So what happens typically if you are a member or if you are one of our customers using our automated listing tool is that this is the open APIs of marketplaces. We actually upload categories, and if you look at the Vinculum webpage, you'll see the categories which are enabled through automated listing. We have close to 30 categories which are already listed through the automated listing tool. And like I said, we are integrated with almost about 30 plus marketplaces. So all you have to do is to pick up the region, pick up the marketplace, and you can actually automate the entire content management at the click of a button, except for the attribute page which you need to enter manually. You can upload your entire catalog, including photos. We can also resize the photos in case there is a requirement. However, there are specific guidelines from marketplaces like Amazon and Myntra in India, which will need to be done by the brand itself. And once the upload is complete, you can then directly push it to marketplaces. All of these currently are done by brands directly on marketplaces and are a time-consuming exercise. It has between a day or two of effort to kind of plug in the data. To Vinculum automated listing tool, this entire exercise can be done within 2 to 3 hours.
Sure. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for such a detailed outlook on how the industry is faring in cross-border e-commerce. The session was quite insightful, and I'm sure that the listeners will have a lot of takeaway from this session. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. Thanks, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.